mainland. I'm Colleen, and we are here every Friday at 3 p.m. This Friday, I have as my guest Professor Karl E. Kim, who is at the University of Hawaii, and he wears actually a lot of hats in this community. But today he's here not with his disaster planning. I want to say that because that's coming on our topic. No, it's not about disasters.
Well, it could be.
No, that's why you're here. We're not going to have it be a disaster.
Okay.
You're just here with your urban and regional planning hat on.
Right. Okay.
So thank you. I know you've been very busy thinking about this week. There was an article in the Star Advertiser, you giving your opinion on what's facing us now that this is amazing. Mayor Caldwell came out and said, let's not go ahead with this. Let's take a moment and redesign this. Well, he didn't say redesign it, but he's giving us an opportunity in Honolulu to really look at it. So what do you think?
Well, we're talking about rail, the fixed rail project. It's an enormously important project. It's a huge project. It's an expensive project. It's a project that is going to affect many, many different communities. It has the potential to do a lot of good, to really help improve our traffic problems, but it's something more than that, and we have to see it as more than just a substitute for the bus or and so forth. So
the reason I called you is because you really are a systems thinker, and we need that kind of really broad-based approach to this. And as you say, I mean, what else can we think of that has cost more than $10 billion and affects every part of life for people who live here?
Right.
So,
I mean, it's so hugely important, and transportation is really critical to the functioning of a community. We need to have good, safe, reliable systems from getting from point A to point B, or everything just gets gummed up.
You know what? We're going to show the clip of the video from the news yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Where they interviewed you
Right.
as kind of a shortcut to the whole context of this discussion.
Another day, another new figure for Honolulu's rapid transit project, and for the first time, it is in the double digits. But what does this latest $10.8 billion figure actually mean? Last month, City Council members voted to cap spending for rail at $6.8 billion. This despite the fact HART has released its estimate for the total cost at $7.9 billion. And the FTA, the city's partner in this project, believes the price tag will be closer to $8.1 billion. The latest nearly $11 billion figure comes from a risk assessment report issued by the Federal Transit Administration. Mileka Lincoln joins us now with more in tonight's top story. Mileka.
Stephanie, HART Board Chair Colleen Hanabusa says the recent $10.8 billion worst case scenario number only matters if the community and elected officials want to pursue more funding for rail.
People may not like what they're hearing. I don't like what I'm hearing. I don't like what I'm reading. But notwithstanding that, the project has started, and the project is, we have an obligation to complete this project to the best that we can.
Both HART board members and urban planning officials agree that with a project this size, there will be setbacks and cost overruns.
The original plans have gone awry. And so it's really important that we do, what we refer to as a mid-course correction. And I think we may need to reset this, to come up with alternative plans, to go through a process to ensure that the benefits of this important project really outweigh the costs.
Right now, Hanabusa says rail officials are operating under the assumption they'll only have the $6.8 billion the city council has budgeted.
The reality is, this is the money. How do we get to the best point that we can get to? And who knows? Maybe it is Middle Street, but maybe it's to downtown or it's somewhere else.
Urban development planners say because of the way rail is being funded through a tax extension, it should be treated like a public investment.
We're taxing food and clothing and medicine and all this stuff to
pay for this system. And so the least we can do is ensure that this system serves the people, right, and serves our community.
Hanabusa, who grew up in Waianae, says it's important to remember the purpose of rail.
It provides an alternative method for us to have transportation without sitting in traffic for as long as we do.
With 370 columns already built and billions already spent, planners say there's no turning back. Instead, it's time for the community to decide what kind of rail project they want.
The headline is, we got to make rail work. We got to make rail work right.
HART has been asked to present the FTA with a recovery plan, which lays out possible alternatives for the project given the expected budget versus the estimated cost. That's due August 7th. Milek Lincoln, Hawaii News Now.
Wow. Okay. So with that little intro, where do we go from here?
Well, this is it's a very big system, and we've poured a lot of money into it. And as the report said, and it's been identified, we've built about half of the system so far, and I think and we've committed to an elevated system, and we've committed to a certain type of rail vehicle and rail technology, and so we have to make parts of it work, and so there are lots of things that we have to do to try to get this thing to work. Obviously, it's getting to be much more expensive than we anticipated, and that's going to be a big challenge. But we have to recognize that transit is always expensive. Operating a bus is expensive. Building a new rail system, especially, when this system was designed and planned, it was actually thought of as more of a counter-cyclical investment. What we do is we invest in big, expensive public works projects when we think the economy is slowing or faltering, right?
And
like
so, the WPA.
Right. And so at the time we were planning this, we were thinking, well, other things have been slowing down, and we need this, and not that we would be competing with all the construction that's going on in Kaka'ako and other parts of the state. And so timing is everything. And so part of this is trying to figure out and understand the mess that we're in right now and how to get out of it.
Okay, how to get out of it. We're in this mess, but we have a moment to pause and restructure it. So is there a way of making use of the investment that we've made so far and making the end result be really functional for us without doing it as planned?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's actually, maybe it's a good thing to actually take a little pause and look at the system, look at what we've invested in so far, and then think about actually what remains to be built. I think the Middle Street to Ala Moana is the most difficult and challenging part of the whole system. And so this gives us time to really make sure we're making the right investments, that we're going on the right alignment, or it's taking the right route, and that we're using the right technology.
So what else could we do besides just continuing the rail and having it cost $10 billion?
What's kind of interesting too is up until this point, there's a station about every mile or so, but the last remaining 4 miles has about 8 stations. And so again, we might be thinking about how many stations we need. Are there ways to keep up the speed? Could we reduce some of the costs by eliminating some of the stations? I think this is one proposal. Or the other idea is to think about a different type of system. Maybe an at-grade system, maybe a system that goes underground. Maybe changing the alignment might make more sense. One of the challenges that we do know is that if people have to get off from one mode, from the rail system, and then switch to a bus or switch to a streetcar system, and then switch to a bus. Every time you do that, you lose riders, right? And so we to the extent possible, we want to keep people on the same mode as long as possible. And so maybe there's a new type of vehicle that could come in that would have both the capacity to run on a third rail system, like the present system, the elevated system, as well as transition to more of a streetcar or at-grade light rail system. And you know, this system actually does operate at grade for a small segment as well too. So maybe there are other sorts of design changes that we can build in to make this system work.
So we could technically have it be at grade, the same system. We could change the routing and have it be at grade. We could.
Yeah, I think that's...
What would that do cost-wise? Would that be a significant difference?
There are all kinds of challenges with this. You know, whenever we make a change in the original plans, there are going to be more planning, engineering, and design costs associated with this. So again, we have to accept that. The other thing is that there may be other benefits by going at grade or changing the alignment. That, you know, an elevated system is a visually intrusive. This is a big system. Working its way through downtown, which is quite built up, I think that there are numerous challenges that have to be, that we need to get over. And so this may be an opportunity to actually design a better system, a more functional system, a system in which actually more people will take advantage of it. And so that's the way we should be thinking about this.
So the main drag of along this, we have these transit oriented developments, these TOD stations,
Yeah,
and
right.
That has been part of the thinking, that has been part of the economics of it. That's going to be affected if we don't do that. So that's adding another cost that was planned in making this resilient. So if we change it, how can we make sure that this isn't, that we're just not making it worse?
Yeah, I think we can really push that transit-oriented development a lot more and really try to reap more of the benefits associated with building a rail station, maybe even integrating the rail stations into developments and projects as well too, leveraging some of the revenues that are associated with the increase in value, and then also really trying to make the system function a lot better than
So how would we do that more than what is already planned? How could we maximize this transit-oriented development as a way? I'm trying to think of ways that we can make this be functional without, you know, bleeding.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's been a lot of good effort that's gone into the efforts in transit-oriented development. I think we can go further. I mean, one of the challenges has always been about the transit-oriented development and with the stations in the middle of the road. Can we bring them into the adjacent development and increase the densities and the amount of development? But that's also really challenging in many areas because a lot of people don't want to see more development in many communities. And so trying to think about this. But again, the most challenging part of this system, I think, is from Middle Street to Ala Moana and ultimately to the University of Hawaii and potentially to Waikiki. So I think that there's some big challenges, and it's a good time to take a pause and think about this. Right?
Okay, and we'll take a pause right now and then be back in about a minute and talk some more about the rail.
Hi, I'm Chris Leatham with Think Tech Hawaii, and I'd like to ask you to come watch my show, The Economy and You, each Wednesday at 3 p.m.
Hello, I'm Marianne Sasaki. Welcome to Think Tech Hawaii, where some of the most interesting conversations in Honolulu go on. I have a show on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 called Life in the Law, where we discuss legal issues, politics, governmental topics, and a whole host of issues. I hope you'll join me.
Aloha! My name is Karl Kim PhD, and I am the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers. I invite you to come watch our show on thinktechhawaii.com. You can also see our shows on YouTube as well, if you can Google search those. I appreciate the time. I hope that you do join us as we learn about education, about the educational system here in Hawaii, what the challenges are, what the benefits are, and how much our kids are learning. So thank you. I hope you join us.
We'll go to the disasters. Welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm Kaui Lucas, and with me today is Karl Kim from the university who's going to help us navigate the rail, our fixed rail. And it's not going to be a disaster.
No, it's not going to be. I mean, well, you have to understand that anytime you do a project of this magnitude, there's a potential for a disaster. In fact, Peter Hall wrote this great book in 1980 called Great Planning Disasters, and one of them was BART. And you look at, we're having a lot of the same problems, combining two different types of systems, not really managing the costs, many similar problems in this. And so it's not just us in Honolulu that have this. I think other cities, other places have these sorts of challenges. And I think we can get away from the problems that we have now if we recognize this is really a planning problem. It's not just about building a transit system. It's really something much more than that. And what we have to really think about is how can we better integrate land use and development and activities around this system.
Okay, how do we do that? What is the actual concrete mechanism for changing the way we're approaching this problem so that we don't end up in a book on disasters?
Right. Well, one of the things that we really need to push is the idea of at-grade systems, and how can we bring these systems down to the ground and integrate them into the urban environment. I know there's a lot of concern about collisions with automobiles and pedestrians and bicyclists, but many other cities have figured out how to do this, to operate at-grade systems. And so that's, especially in the urban core, that may make a lot of sense. I think
from adding that maybe from where they are at Middle Street and maybe moving to grade.
Right. Moving to grade and figuring out a way to get down from the guideway to at grade or other sort of strategies like that.
That sounds great.
Right. But I think we also have to think about other ways of raising revenues. It cannot be just on the excise tax. One of the major concerns that I have is that the excise tax, which we use to pay the bulk of the cost of this system, is a very regressive tax. And we should think about other ways of capturing revenues, of capturing the increase in values around the properties, around the stations.
So what would be a good example of that?
So different types of value capture strategies and ways of encouraging joint development and joint ownership, and especially as we're looking at ways in which we can develop whole areas or corridors that now we have a chance to think about.
And doing that as we move into the urban core makes a lot more sense than trying to do that in the middle of ag lands, for instance.
Right. Where there's so much activity, there's so much housing, there's so much other stuff that's going on. There's so many of the institutions as well too that would really benefit by having improved access to reliable transportation systems, that reduced parking requirements, that would benefit by having their workers, their employees being able to have a reliable system to commute and to move around.
So let's have a look at some of the ones that you like, that you think that are really working well.
Right.
We have a picture of one in
Europe,
in
yeah. So this, I believe this is in Ghent in Belgium, and you can see here the system is the vehicle is sharing the road with pedestrians and bicyclists and automobiles, and there's a lot of street activity that's going on. In Portland, the streetcar system actually goes right through the Portland State University, right in the middle of the campus. This is a streetcar system in Portland as well too, and so
we used to have that in Honolulu, just like that. There's down. I've seen pictures of that.
So that there are these opportunities, and everyone thinks about, it's fixed rail versus light rail, or heavy rail versus light rail versus buses versus your rideshare. No, I think it's all of the above. We need to think about this in terms of all of these different types of systems and technologies and how, for different environments, they make the most sense.
Okay, so it's a pretty fast train, the one that we've got. So if we took that train that we've already bought and invested in, and had it at grade, would it be able to function like the smaller systems?
Actually, it's
we looked at?
slowing down a lot when it's getting to the urban area, right? Because it takes some time. I think the operating speed is like 55 miles an hour, and then when it reaches the urban areas, it's going to have to operate slower because it's shorter distances. Instead of going a mile or 2 miles between stations, it's going half a mile or so, and so. And so that's that's part of the opportunity that I think we have in terms of rethinking this and thinking about how to
So
improve
just to
this.
be clear, that train though could be at grade and going through urban Honolulu.
I think there are
if we
challenges.
decided that.
I think there are challenges because it's a third rail system. And I know I can't pick up my model here, but there is that we do need to have overhead lines to support typical streetcar or light rail system. using
But
a
we've
cap
had
on
that
it.
in Honolulu.
Yeah.
We've had that.
And while that is visually intrusive too, to have wiring
I'd
above.
rather have wires than concrete.
Massive concrete structure.
Yeah.
Right.
Given the choice.
And there are these new technologies where things are embedded into the pavement, and other ways of trying to solve this problem. But that may require more investigation in terms of these alternative
And
technologies.
that's maybe
so.
time we don't
Have. Right. And so
You did mention something a few minutes ago that I wanted to dig a little deeper into, and that was the looking at tunneling at below grade. Why haven't
Yeah,
we
there have been real advances made in tunneling and the costs of going underground as well too. But there are also some challenges with going underground as well too. I mean, people have psychologically, there's something about going underground that is a little bit different than being at grade or even above ground, not being able to see daylight and what's around you and so forth. And there are some significant challenges with that, but I don't think that should be off the table in terms of things that we can be considering. And there may be some there may be some advantages to going underground in a built-up area. You look at all the tunneling work that's been going on in Manhattan and for the 7th Avenue extension, to the Hudson rail yards, and there's all this tunneling goes on below ground, and it doesn't disrupt the traffic, and it's sort of a little out of sight, out of mind, right?
It seems to work for me. I lived in Manhattan for a few years, and I would always think about that. Gee, I wish we could do this because it's one way of handling the transportation system without causing view plane disruption. And places like Paris are where, I mean, they have whole cities underground, and I don't know how that works engineering-wise, but
we can bring people in to talk about that. I mean, I think it's an interesting challenge and an interesting possibility, but right now we have an opportunity to get this remaining part right. And that's the way we should be thinking about this. What do we need to do to ensure that we've got the best possible, that we're designing the best possible system for the people of Honolulu?
So if you can think of no more than 3 things for our leaders to really take on in the next few months to really look at this, what would your suggestions be?
I mean, first is it's got to be jointly owned. It cannot be just a city project or just a transit project. It really has to involve the landowners, the developers, the community, the users of the system. So really, and that's always hard to do because just how projects
It's
go.
messy.
And it's just messy and just engaging. And I really do believe that if we could have more joint ownership of this, not just with the city and the state, but also with others, that's the first thing that I think is really critical. Second thing is we have to recognize that we need new revenues for this. The costs just keep going up, 5.2 billion to 8 billion to now over 10 billion. And so what we need to really be thinking about is the mix of revenues to support this system, if we really want this, right? And we have to make sure that the benefits of this project outweigh all of these costs. And so I would say we have to diversify our revenue stream, thinking about this. And that's going to take some leadership and some courage, but that's really critical. And then the third thing that you and I have talked about is I think we have to link the development of this, the most expensive capital project ever in the history of Hawaii, to our innovation economy. That this should really be about, spawning and developing and nurturing and incubating new businesses, new ideas, new skills, new capabilities to plan, design, engineer, manage, and operate not just a transit system. We can't think about it as just a transit system. This is really about community development. That's the only way this thing makes sense. Otherwise, it's just a costly, big black hole in the ground. It's a disaster in the making, right?
I think we have to think of it as our circulatory system.
Right.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I had these visions of, they have these urban farms now, of structures where we could have urban farms and have the transportation be part of that, and transitioning from bicycles
Right.
to pedestrian
Right, right.
zones, and much more interaction, like that picture in Ghent. I don't understand why we don't have that kind of thinking happening at the levels of planning, but you have been here for 30 years.
Doing this.
Trying.
Right. But I still have hope. I mean, I think this is there are a lot of well-intentioned people, a lot of hardworking people striving and trying to do the right thing, and I believe in the end that this will be a good project. And
You mentioned something in your essay about substitutions.
import
that's very
substitution.
dear,
Import
very dear to
substitution.
my heart.
Right,
yes.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's important to take kind of a systems view of this and what we can do to really support our local economy, to support our local businesses, to support our institutions, our organizations, our people that are coming together to do the planning, to do the work, and I think that will also help.
Thank you so much, Karl, for coming and talking on Hawaii is My Mainland.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure this won't be the last time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Aloha.